from Via Monticello, Maryland, the United States of America. I'm Jacob Music, and this is The Word. Tonight we will discuss the Twitter hashtag #FreeCuba. Also, as One Direction feuds with Boy George, fans of the group allegedly commit suicide over their portrayal in a Channel 4 documentary. Also, we will discuss CNBC's Decabox. But first, some headlines. Fancy Feast has put on their own fashion show featuring designs inspired by the domesticated cat. They are described as colorful and retro, pleasing to the cat's eye in a press release issued on September 13th. 3 looks were created by designer Milan Breton, inspired by the look of the classic Fancy Feast Persian. According to the release, the unmistakable stunning beauty of the cat motivated him to create fashion for humans inspired by the mascot. Fancy Feast assistant brand manager Courtney Lauch issued further comments saying, "Fancy Feast enjoys sharing cat-inspired fashion with its fans to bring cat fashion trends and looks to life to our passionate fans." Among the feline fashion is a gown with a 17-foot train. A United States consulate in Herat has been attacked by the Taliban. The group took responsibility shortly after news of the attack broke overnight in the United States. Friends of Boston bombing suspect Dzhokhar Tsarnaev have been brought to court. They were questioned amid claims that they had destroyed items that had belonged to Mr. Tsarnaev. The in-laws of slain Tamerlan Tsarnaev were also grilled by a grand jury recently as legal proceedings surrounding the bombing at the Boston Marathon continue. CBS This Morning has claimed that Vladimir Putin's now infamous op-ed in the New York Times was placed by a public relations firm named Ketchum. The reportage goes on to say that Washington is, quote, angry over the column, and several American politicians have also expressed their disapproval. A Democratic senator went so far as to say it made him want to vomit. Ketchum also reportedly does work for Gazprom. The report concluded by explaining that the use of public relations firms by government and politics is nothing new in the United States, and some U.S. politicians were part of a PR campaign lobbying on behalf of Hosni Mubarak. It looks as if Miley Cyrus will score her first U.S. #1 next week. The second single from her new album, Bangers, Wrecking Ball, has been shot to the top of the charts by the release of its music video, which features Ms. Cyrus naked. Electronic dance musician Sebastian Ingrosso was included on a list of collaborators who crafted Britney Spears' new song. On September 13th, Mr. Ingrosso revealed that he did not, in fact, collaborate with Ms. Spears on her new track entitled Work Bitch. He also stated he does not know why Ms. Spears' team would upload an image onto Twitter that included him. The mystery will continue as Work Bitch will be premiering in the upcoming days. Co-host of The Talk, Cheryl Underwood, made some shocking revelations in a recent iteration of the show. Underwood revealed that she was born a twin, but that her sister died. Her mother, she said, told her for years that her sister was killed by her father. She remained distant with her father until he was stabbed by her mother. Those were your headlines for The Word today. When we come back, we will discuss our first topic, the #FreeCuba hashtag. What does it say about American education? This is The Word. I'm glad we're getting back into it. It's been quite a while with my school semester starting, and trying to get back into that. But we are here. It is September, and we have some fun topics today. Today, I have The Word regular contributor Annika Wolf. Annika, thank you for being on the program.
Thank you.
And Charlotte, back for a second time. Thank you for coming today.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
So, the first topic that we are going to talk about is, obviously, I'm sure both of you know who Ariel Castro is, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Well, he does share a last name with somebody else who is famous, and that brings us to this article from Bossip. It says, Fidel Castro is probably rolling in his grave, despite still being alive. Turns out many ignorant Twitter users confused Ariel Castro's death for Cuba's Fidel Castro. After news hit about Ariel Castro's suicide in his jail cell, the hashtag #FreeCuba started trending. Hate on Fidel all you want, but a rapist and convicted kidnapper he is not. And I have both examples from this article and other examples that I found on Twitter of this #FreeCuba hashtag. Somebody posted on Twitter, Ariel Castro found dead. I imagine the commie choked on his cigars. Also, another person tweeted, Cuban dictator Ariel Castro is dead. Now I can finally have some cigars. So a lot of cigar-themed ones. And then another person who was, mocking this sort of said, want to lose faith in American education, search Free Cuba. And there are many others. Some that make fun of it, some that actually believe it, some people saying they can't believe Fidel Castro died today. So, obviously Fidel Castro was the leader of Cuba from 1959 to 2008. Ariel Castro was not. And, but we do know it has been well publicized over the past, decade. We all kind of know Americans are not too good when it comes to international issues, when it comes to geography, when it comes to foreign...
When it comes to national issues, forget international.
What is it with America sometimes? And, this is one example, but there was another one, like I'm sure you guys have seen, with, I've seen these on-the-street sort of interviews, and this was in the...
Yeah, Jay Leno does them, Glenn Beck does them. I heard him today, as a matter of fact.
Glenn Beck does them, but also, Jay Leno does them, and they're hilarious. Yeah. And people say, he'll give them a pen and he'll say, stick this on Iraq, and somebody will stick it on Australia. What is it about America today that leads to this kind of, this lack of geographical and international knowledge?
They don't teach people, they don't educate them, they teach them how to pass a test.
And you think that extends even to the social studies classes?
Oh, certainly. I'll give you an example. When I was listening to the Glenn Beck one today, I was driving and I just happened to turn it on. People didn't even know who the Secretary of State was. They didn't know how many countries were in North America.
Oh, no.
Wow. I was listening to this and I'm like, they didn't know what the word ally meant.
What? Charlotte, what do you think that it is about America that leads to this kind of insular mindset?
Years ago, when, say, somebody else in California did something like in the 60s, California designed, they were the first people to design open space classrooms.
Yes.
And then, that idea or concept made its way across the country when all these educators get together for conferences or whatever, and then they want to replicate that, but perhaps they don't have enough money in their budget or blah, blah, blah. So when you get over to the East Coast, they have open space, but it wasn't designed as it was meant to be, and that's why kids are learning with noise in the background and this and that and the other. Yes. And then over the years in the 70s and 80s, any kind of national concept or idea that came out, people tried to grab parts of it or pieces of it. Look how many transitions our schools have been through. What is it called? There's No Child Left Behind.
We had No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top, and now the Common Core curriculum.
Yeah. And before that, there was all kinds of things. And what they're doing in the curriculum, too, is, remember when Nancy Reagan had Just Say No?
Yes.
They spent so much money on, high schools had the parking lot with the street signs that said, Just Say No.
Yes.
All this money directed toward something that people weren't skilled enough to even deal with. But they used to say, do it in the school, do it in the school, do it in the school.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of resentment in the schools, too, that they're not being paid well enough.
Yeah, and what about when we go back, to talking about the educational system and how it's implemented with the, these different programs? Do you guys think that the emphasis on testing and having to show cut and dry black and white results plays into it, Annika?
Absolutely. They're not even really testing the kids' education. They're testing how well a kid can take a test.
And they would give us, and they knew, because they've tied the budget to it. I was in school in the period where, the initial period in which No Child Left Behind was implemented, they would tell us the answers to the tests.
Really?
they would give us the answers to the test. You know, because but you have to understand, if they didn't do well, the weight of the school budget was on these poor teachers' shoulders, and that is not how it should be.
Yeah, not the
You know, they should be being able to be focused on their job and not attaining funding for their school. You know, and so. As far as this issue of just American students and American people in general not knowing about the greater world, are there any reasons, do you think, outside of education, outside of the schoolhouse, that cause even American adults to be totally ignorant about other countries in the world? And even, unfortunately, you know, studies of cable news, which is an issue that we will go to later on in the program, it shows that people who are consumers of cable news, you know, if that is their primary or only source of information, they're really not much more educated or knowledgeable about the world than people who just ignore it. You know?
Right, part of the reason Hillary was in the news so much is because she was going to run for president.
Well, and because her celebrity status was...
Right now.
But also, she had the dual advantage, well, advantages, disadvantages, above John Kerry, in the sense that her celebrity was cemented by both a sex scandal, which we as an American society are fascinated with, but also she was the first lady, you know? So anything else you want to say about that, just expressing your indignation at America?
I think part of it is we as Americans, we don't care about learning about anybody else because we're so busy tooting our own horn.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think that's a big part of it too. Well, you know how much money as a parent, I probably just spent almost $100 at the beginning of school because then we have to supplement that vocational tech class, his science or biology class.
Yes.
But last year when he was in 8th grade, we had to provide the glasses.
I think it's interesting that, you know, historically since the 1970s, you know, the state has receded in funding a lot of this extraneous stuff, and parents are expected to pick up the tab for it. Not everyone's parents can do that, and even on parents who are well off, that is a strain. If your kid is in a public school, they should not have to be thinking about giving supplies to the public school. But I find it very odd, at the same time as the state is receding from those funding areas, they're implementing more control over the testing and requirements, which I find odd. It's like, and as to the point that you made a little bit earlier, Annika, you know, we've talked about this before, this idea of American exceptionalism and we're number one, you know, that kind of idea, like I don't need to know about the stinking rest of the world. That is what does in great empires, when they have this hubris, you know. Come back and talk about a cluster of bizarre boy band related stories, okay?
Oh my gosh, okay.
So, do you guys know of the band One Direction?
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, wait, Annika, you're not a fan?
That's a boy band. I'm old enough to be these kids' mother. I've never been a fan of boy bands, even when I was a teen. Yeah.
So basically, One Direction, they're known because they're from England, and well, one of them's Irish, I think. But they are, they are kind of that normal boy band thing where they're kind of all marketed a certain way and they're very like squeaky clean. At the same time, this group has had a persistent problem of a kind of provocative behavior that
group equivalent of Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber does this, that, the other thing, and gets in trouble and is an absolute jerk. And
I mean, I don't know if it's gone that far yet, but they have had this problem of, you know, even back when they were just known in England, in the UK, they were constantly posting photos of themselves naked. And then when they came to the United States, they would brag to these teeny bopper magazines about how many American girls they were bedding. And so these were, I mean, it's like management was able to kind of put a hold on this, but that hasn't stopped some more controversies from arising, such as their feud with Boy George. So this is the most bizarre...
absolutely normal in his own way. It's never been arrested for that thing.
Boy George is the arbiter of normality. He's just universal. He's just universal. So normal.
He was in Thailand not long ago.
Oh, really?
On Beach Road. My son has a picture on Facebook of him.
Okay. So anyways, back to this article. So it's called Odds Are Every Guy in One Direction is Bisexual, says Boy George. This is his quote. He says, I wouldn't know who One Direction were if they fell on my head. I'm older than them. They should treat me with respect. I blocked all the band. I couldn't be bothered to hear anything they said, but I couldn't help winding up their fans. One fan tweeted me saying, my mom says you're a horrible old has-been. I tweeted back saying, your mom's probably an old, fat, ugly bitch. I was having such a laugh fighting with One Directioners all night. He concludes by saying, the odds are one of One Direction must be gay. And
most likely, the way they act. I mean, and the fact is, who gives a shit?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
He doesn't even know who they are. Why is he getting into a fight with their fans in the first place?
I don't know. I mean, was this something that Boy George was always kind of like catty like this and would go after young people?
Oh, yeah. Boy George. I mean, that's what he...
You know, both in boy bands going back to the 40s and 50s, you know, singing groups, they weren't really known as boy bands back then, but they were the same concept. There is always, for every boy band, there are these rumors of some sort of, they're sexual rumors.
Because it's a bunch of people together of the same sex that are very close. Why would they be that close with each other unless, I mean, you know, I don't think improper is the right word, but when we're talking 40s and 50s, they use the word improper.
Yes.
But, we're talking about back then.
Well, I mean, it was with the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. When I was a school child, everyone was talking about how the Backstreet Boys were all gay, and, you know, NSYNC was whatever, and New Kids on the Block. You know, I mean, it goes back and back and back. There's always this fascination about these groups, and people say, you know, a lot of times guys feel threatened, and I think they say, well, they're gay, you know, as a way of diffusing it, you know. Yeah.
Well, didn't the lead singer go out with Taylor Swift?
I have no idea.
For a while.
Perhaps.
She's not very long. Supposedly all these broken, battered love songs she does about him. I just saw them, I guess, on the internet when I was clicking through, and they were on the Today Show the other day. They had throngs of little young girls, you know, like screaming, but the headline under the picture was, they wonder how much product he uses in his hair. Nothing about the music, nothing, you know.
There is always, you know, with boy bands, it's like a group of men cannot get together and be in the performing arts without questioning their manhood. And that is a theme that goes back so far in American culture, you know?
Even Elvis, there were rumors that Elvis was gay the way he was shaking his hips.
Seriously. But it's interesting that you bring up the Today Show. I have an article concerning their Today performances from Radar Online. It's called Party Foul. Hungover One Direction star Zayn Malik forgets his words on stage after an all-night party with Rihanna. Zayn appeared hungover for the band's big performance on the Today Show, forgot the words to a solo, and proceeded to cancel all of his interviews for the rest of the day after partying all night with singer Rihanna. After heading out to the party...
He's old enough to be their mother, too.
Rihanna's not that old, is she? What did you say?
You know the ages of the boys in the band?
They're all under 21 except for one.
They are. That's shameful of her to party with those kids. That's the other thing. He's got them partying and drinking and this and that, and it absolutely makes me sick because we have such a culture of drinking and driving and this and that. Look at all these stars who've been arrested for it. People who can afford a fucking tax. We have that young man on the Baltimore Orioles, the third baseman who's incredible, Manny Machado. Mm-hmm. And he recently turned 21, and he did his ball game, he did his thing, he had some kind of small celebration, but the paper had him on the first page of the second section on all the things he can do now that he's 21, like guzzle, you know, drinks, da-da-da. Yeah. And it was all about, like, alcohol, partying, and women. And he's just 21. He's basically a kid, and he's a star. And right now, he's like an excellent third baseman. But it's almost like encouraging him to do something different. Or that's what's expected. He's 21. He's going to go do blah, 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 blah. Now, all these things in life. Why
do you think this culture exists in America?
And again, it's all that repression that we have.
Yes, I agree.
They repress everything. Repress sexuality. So, it's like, all right, we're free now. Let's unrepress.
Let's go crazy, you know, way over the top. You know? And I
That's
completely
exactly
agree. I completely agree. Let me continue on. This article goes on to say, after heading out to the party shortly before midnight, Zayn, listen to this itinerary because this is crazy. So he waits until almost midnight to go out to this party. Then Zayn stayed at the bash for several hours and was not spotted returning to his hotel before the Today Show wake-up call around 4:30 a.m. I'm wondering where they get the energy to do this and perform on the road. I am shocked.
Because they don't perform, they lip sync, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
And even the performers that do perform, many performers nowadays, it's all that electronic synthesized stuff, and they're really not focusing the actual voice. The standard that there used to be 20 years ago, in my opinion, is not there.
Well, I mean, in this particular genre of music that we are talking about, teen pop and boy bands, vocals was never a draw, necessarily. It was more about personality.
I understand. Yeah, don't forget Milli Vanilli.
No, God, Millie.
Yeah, pretty much the norm with a lot of...
How raunchy do you think these boys' lives would be behind closed doors? Would their fans be shocked?
Yes, absolutely.
Once he was at the Today Show, Zayn appeared and acted slightly under the weather. Opening the boys' song Kiss You with his solo, Zayn forgot the words. So they were not lip-syncing in this case. The first time...
Well, then maybe that points to maybe at least the managers aren't giving them drugs.
The first
so
time, bandmate Louis Tomlinson confronted him, but Zayn repeated the error again later in the song, and it was especially noticeable. So there was something...
You know what they say, no publicity is bad publicity.
Yeah, but with these boy bands, they're so heavily managed to promote this image.
Silly little Miley Cyrus, she gets all the publicity she does. How can they compete with that without being... Exactly.
That's a point.
I mean, if they're just normal looking cute with their little hairdos and singing, it's not as noteworthy or newsworthy as...
And you know what?
I saw that VMA thing. I had to see it. It was sickening. I honestly was sickened.
I mean, I don't think that it's such a big deal. I mean, who cares? You are feeding into this beast that everyone purports to be against.
Oh, no, I just think that it's if you look at it, Miley Cyrus started out as this little kid star, blah, 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 and a lot of little kids look up to her. Sure. So overtly sexual. And I mean, even Robin Thicke did not look comfortable, to be quite honest. And I think the reason that it sickened me was because you have all these kids looking up to her.
I mean, that's true, but she is not a child.
You don't want them imitating that behavior.
She's not a
she's
child.
Not Hannah Montana anymore.
She's not a child.
A lot of the parents, little children, probably don't even understand that she's Miley Cyrus. But I guess 10, 11s, and 12s do. But I would think by now they've moved on because she's not Hannah Montana.
She's old
not
news
something they can relate to.
That age group.
Where they want to be.
But let's go. Okay, so the last piece of this article says the boy band has certainly developed a taste for the nightlife in recent months. As RadarOnline.com has reported, even though they are all under the age of 21 except for 21-year-old Lewis, who was the responsible one trying to correct for his bandmates' failures. So back to this culture of kind of going partying wild, frat parties and drinking till you black out. That is so common and so normalized on America's college campuses.
Hey, Lindsay Lohan's mother got arrested last night for drinking and driving.
What?
So great. Lindsay Lohan's mother was arrested.
I thought you said Lindsay Lohan was arrested last night. You almost shattered
her mother last night was arrested for drinking and driving.
That's interesting.
I mean, if you look at it, there were lots of child stars in the past that never had these issues.
No, hold on. You cannot compare that because the thing is, our 24-hour news cycle, invasive paparazzi, the intense tabloid presence that we have today was not the case decades ago.
No, even decades ago, some of the shows that I watched, like, what was it? It was Buffy and Jody, they were twins. One of those committed suicide, one of the twins. And on that one, the guy with the little boy, what you talking about, Willis? So two of them are dead.
Yeah. And, a lot of times when later, in decades later, these child stars or these famous actors who have these good images in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s in some cases, they're now publishing memoirs, and we look through their lives and see, yeah, they were doing exactly the same things. So what is it about being a celebrity, being in the public eye, having so much money? Why do so many people in this situation gravitate towards it?
It's pressure. I mean, I don't know if, like, Lindsay Lohan, she didn't want to do it probably as a 6-year-old. That's her parents.
Exactly,
Her
yeah.
parents wanted her to do it.
And then she has the whole world watching her.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte, what do you think it is about the celebrity life?
When you're a celebrity, or if you're anybody, and you have money and, a little bit of fame, people, like, you attract people that want to hurt you. You attract all kinds of people, and I think that the young kids just aren't skilled socially enough to be able to weed out, have like a criteria of, this person's probably not trustworthy, because kids are trustworthy, and they think if someone's coming to them and wants to be their friend or their manager or whatever,
yes,
they're just not skilled enough to.
They're not wary of the world yet. They're not street smart. They're kids.
And a lot of times,
to the parents to protect them, and when the parents are putting them in even more jeopardy.
Yes, and it is very curious if we look at some of the people who are in these stars' entourages. Recently a member of Justin Bieber's entourage was implicated as a member in an international cocaine smuggling ring. Are the managers, are they just failing to protect them, or are they doing this on purpose?
They're all out for money. If they're not out to protect city.
Oh, that even like the radar online and all those people, the paparazzi people,
yes,
they're not trying to find like Lindsay Lohan or Miley Cyrus and like just shopping for lipstick or having tea with her grandmother.
Yeah.
They're looking for those soft things. So people climb over fences and trees and to get the dirt.
They do crazy things.
Yeah, I mean, they make it so that they can't even walk to and from their cars.
But so there are, let's switch from talking about this area of their antics and switch to the effect that they have on their fans. So this story came out very recently, I think probably a day and a half ago. Because in the new age of the internet, some of our favorite public figures are closer than they have ever been to us. We can communicate with them. We can send messages to them. They can reply if they so choose. And one young, passionate fan of One Direction sent a Twitter message to one of the members. I don't know who it was, but one of the members, and said, "Please write me back." Well, he didn't write her back. And in response, she slaughtered her dog.
Oh my gosh.
There's a problem with that.
There is a problem with that. I mean, there are people who are but listen to me. There are people who get into this cult of personality and feel like they know these celebrities, that if you even have an inch of a disconnect from reality, that can get under your skin. There are people who, there was, for example, an intruder into the Havenhurst mansion of the Jacksons that lived in a closet for 2 weeks. There are people constantly jumping over fences, tackling security guards. I think it's interesting and it deserves reflection.
Oh, I could consider myself almost extreme like that.
With Willie Nelson.
I have that thing with Willie Nelson. I don't think I would do anything that would hurt myself or anyone else, but
so you wouldn't kill a dog?
I figured it out, but I haven't been able to meet him yet, and I can't figure out. I mean, honestly, I've sat and thought, what's wrong with me that I can't meet him?
This is from Sky News in the UK. Twitter, again, it's all about Twitter. Twitter has done nothing but trouble for these celebrities, let me tell you. Twitter has been flooded with rumors.
They open their big mouths.
Twitter has been flooded with rumors that One Direction fans have committed suicide after watching a Channel 4 documentary on the group. The documentary prompted an angry response from fans unhappy about being portrayed as obsessive. Some users of the site claimed 42 people had committed suicide after the program, but not one case has been confirmed. In this documentary, the channel describes fans as making death threats to band members' girlfriends and fans being willing to chop off their own limbs and kill kittens just to be in the same room.
Oh my God, I can see that. I mean, I've seen it over the years, like with the Elvis fans, with Beatle fans. I mean, people stand there and listen in the audience crying.
Yes.
Because they're that close, but, it's like they're that close.
It's like
but they're not there.
It's like, to me, once if you've seen some examples of the power that stars have on people, I could totally see a girl who's in those teenage years where she's feeling a little bit like, that everything is just crazy because those are crazy years. If she maybe has something like depression or bipolar disorder or, maybe schizophrenia, perhaps it's not really about one direction, but that serves as her trigger, and she could, harm the dog, or in this case, these people could hurt themselves, And I think the fans in this case were just confronted with this documentary that showed how crazy they look because they never stopped and looked in the mirror, and they couldn't handle it. And they see how people see them, which is not a pleasant sight,
See, I'm still based in reality. That's why I don't go on and on about Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
Because I realize that's not my reality. And I go back to school and I live my life. But every once in a while, that's thought, my goal in life was to meet him before I die.
And I think that you can do it. I think that you can. But there's no reason, if you can't, to think you're any less of a good person.
Yeah, and he'll be here in Baltimore September 22nd. So trying to get a front row ticket for that.
I thought it was last week he was here, you said.
I thought it was, but I thought it was like the 12th, or I don't know, but I just looked, it's the 22nd.
Well, you know what? I believe that you can do it and you can meet your idol. And you don't have to kill any kittens or dogs or chop your hand off.
But it's not my idol. All you gotta do is get yourself a pound of pot. You can meet Willie, no problem. Get a what? Pound of pot.
Well, he has all that he needs, let me tell you.
He lives in Hawaii. I'm sure he has some Hawaiian that's pretty good. He always gets in trouble on his tour bus for having it. So.
But you know who else does? Justin Bieber has something in common with Willie Nelson, is they both get busted constantly.
When we went back to court, the judge said if he sang Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, he would dismiss the case. And that's the thing.
It's kind of cute, and I get it, and whatever, and I think marijuana should be legal, but the thing is, he shouldn't be treated differently because he's a celebrity, and that's a problem.
Well, I know, but it's Willie, and it's just pot.
I know, but that's the same kind of thinking. But listen to me. That's the same kind of thinking that lets people like Paris Hilton break the law and only be in jail for like 8 hours. And I'm a fan of Paris Hilton, but that is not right.
No, because if you did it, you'd be in jail for 6 months.
Exactly. You are, I believe you are based in reality. But, as Dick Cheney famously said, in the last decade, we no longer live in a reality-based world. What am I trying to say? It blends or blurs the line, if we want to use a Robin Thicke, Miley Cyrus analogy. It blurs the line between your life, your real life, and the world of entertainment media and the world of these stars. And some people can't navigate that, and they just get lost, But anything else you want to say about One Direction, Rihanna, killing kitties, anything else?
No, don't want to go away. I really don't.
Entertainment industry will not go away. Okay, so we're going to go to...
No, not the entertainment industry, but these, no talent have. The real singer-songwriters who practice their craft.
But you're romanticizing it. American popular music has never been about traditional means of talent, necessarily. If you want that, go to art music, go to opera, blah, blah, blah,
But we don't seem to have the same quality as we used.
But you have to think about it in this way. We don't remember the hacks from back in the day because they faded away. All we remember is the great people who are held up as great. So we get a distorted picture. Believe me, I've done, ethnomusicological research. I've gone back, I did my senior thesis on disco music and, early R&B music. There was some crap, but nobody remembers it because we only remember the quote good people. So we have to beware to not romanticize the past, But we are going to go to break, and we're going to come back and talk about our main feature, the Deca Box. Okay?
Oh God! About all my insanity today, it was just oh my God, it was hell day.
We're back. This is the word. So Annika. I still have Annika here, but we did lose Charlotte. She will be on again, but she was just unable to continue the call with us. So we're going to continue on to our last subject, which is from TV Newser. It's so within the past month, I'm sure that you, Annika, have heard and the listeners have heard, but a glitch occurred at the NASDAQ stock exchange, causing it to go out of commission for a few hours. And so naturally, CNBC had no choice but to bring in 10 analysts at once to talk about it. Even for cable news, this is excessive. The article says CNBC brought out the Box. That's 2 more talking heads than what they had previously rolled out as the extreme, the Octobox. So I actually did see a video of the Box in action, and it was not as much of a clusterfuck as I thought it would be. Because, I mean, when I first heard of this, 10 analysts at once. And so, talking about the same subject, and CNBC segments are usually like 2 minutes long. So I envisioned this talking over each other disaster, and it wasn't that bad, but at the same time, it wasn't that good. And so, I mean, what are your feelings? Do you think that it's, do you think that this would be, that this would be something you'd be interested in and thinking it would enhance your news experience?
Well, I think that you're not really going to get to hear everyone's full opinion. You're only going to get like a 2-second soundbite when you have that many people. So you're not going to actually really learn anything. I think it's ridiculous. You don't need that many. But
and I think CNBC is really, they even released like an article about it, and they were really trumpeting this Box. And, they've pushed the limit in the past, and this is kind of a thing for them. But, I mean, it makes me wonder if this really, helps their cause, which ostensibly is to provide financial information, but what we really know it is to make money. And it's also interesting because, CNBC has been the worst offender in recent years when it comes to what I call the cluttered cable news syndrome, which CNBC, the screen is just a octopus of scrolling graphics, colors. The CNBC screen has 5 news tickers. It is out of control. So I have to ask you this. Do you think the cable news screen in general is too busy?
Oh, absolutely.
So
it's crazy. We're already an ADHD society.
Yeah.
We barely focus for, as I said, with less than 7 minutes at this point. I mean, if you're focusing on so many different things, you don't have time to process it.
Yes.
So, how do you read the bottom of the screen and read the top of the screen and listen to what they're saying? It's bad for our health, in my personal opinion.
Like you said, people can only process, the average person can only process so much at one time. And throwing so much out there and expecting the audience to absorb it is a little illogical. I mean, it's just tough. Like, what does that say about our political culture as well? That's why we've evolved into the soundbite society, if we're going to say a trite little thing like that. Campaigns are based on sound bites. They can make or break you at this point. That the number one, newscast in the country, which, whether it's a newscast or not is debatable, but that's, that's him. People trust him the most. It's interesting.
Exactly.
There's no news ticker. There's no weather thing. There's no logos. There's minimal graphics. I mean, it's not a filled screen, and people still watch. So the news ticker was only a major feature on financial networks until the chaos of September 11th unleashed it onto to general news. And after that, it quickly became a staple industry-wide. Do you believe that this development is a good thing?
I think, maybe the little ticker at the bottom of the screen.
One ticker, you're saying.
Right, but not a constant ticker. Like if there's something important that comes up, or have it on and then let it go for 10, 15 seconds and then have a little thing and let it go.
And I think the rationale, I guess, for it is because, for the commercial networks, I mean, now it's spread to public television too, but, for places like CNN, they, started using it heavily because it gave people, if they were bored by the story that was the main feature, they could watch the news ticker and they might not turn off their television so they could still have viewers,
And that's exactly my point. If they're bored with the news story, that means you're not reporting the story right. People are getting bored with it.
Oh, I completely disagree. I don't.
You're not absorbing it.
Well, no, I think if you're bored, number one, that is what is going on in the world, okay? Either, you have the mentality of a child, or you shouldn't be watching the news, because the news is not supposed to be entertaining. Okay, you're supposed.
No,
it's an information.
informative.
It's supposed to be informative in theory.
I choose no longer to watch my news,
Yes.
but rather go online to to the Associated Press and things like that, and get my news, from News Pro or AP or somewhere more direct.
Gives you more control over what stories you do, what are most important to you, and what you want to consume.
Exactly.
And I think that cable news, in adopting the ticker industry-wide, I think that was partially also, if you think about it, 2001, it was September 11th, but also that was a time when a lot of people were going to the internet as a source of news. That was the beginning of that. And so as a reaction, CNN and co. said, people can choose what stories are relevant to them now. Well, let's just try to avoid them migrating away by just throwing multiple stories on at once,
Yeah. And that way people won't turn the channel and our advertisers will pay us. America, granted, we've always been, we're capitalistic, we're a greed basis. But I really think every day it seems to be getting, more and more and more and more greed-based, and to the point where people are losing sight of what's important.
Like values, yeah.
Exactly.
And a lot of theorists, say that in capitalism, values are not important. Markets don't have values. Their value is one, money, and so that gradually erodes the core values of the society, But the next question is, some networks, more than others, are obviously known more for their visuals. Fox News, for example, their programs feature beautiful million-dollar sets, a fast pace, lots of colors, and porn-ready newswomen. And my favorite, Russia Today, is known for its beautiful graphic displays that change with the seasons. Do these types of experiences add or detract from the news experience?
Oh, I think it absolutely detracts from it, because you're focusing on the wrong thing. And that's another thing. Like I said, I've only recently become a fan of the Jon Stewart show.
Okay.
And I was watching him yesterday, the day before yesterday, and they were making fun of the fact that we're not at war with Syria yet, but they had the fancy graphic already made up, and they were kind of showing it, but not showing it.
Yeah.
I don't remember the actual clip, but basically that was the whole point of it.
Yes.
That the graphic was more important than what was going on.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people, it's interesting that so many people are receptive to the Jon Stewart Daily Show, because going from cable news to that, it's almost like after going from that environment to one like Jon Stewart, it's almost understimulating,
Yeah, and what I like about him is he really calls a spade a spade.
Mm-hmm.
He shows you this stuff, and he shows you how ridiculous we are. Like the fact that Obama, with the Let's Hip Syria, big important topic. Obama makes this ridiculous statement to get elected, saying there's a red line and we're going to do something.
Absolutely. Yeah, this entire situation is a farce.
And we are the laughing stock of the world.
To be honest, I feel like people were laughing at us. Well, they weren't laughing. They were laughing in horror. And they were laughing in horror in 2003 when we invaded Iraq. So I feel like that credibility...
Everyone's credibility is gone.
Yeah, I don't know that... I don't think that our allies are openly mocking us, but I think the general public is in the world. I think that we're just a joke.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But it's more than that. But it's more than that.
Take America seriously.
Because we're not just a clown that's harmless. We are a dangerous joke. We are a drunk 3-year-old with a buzzsaw,
Absolutely.
And the president needed to... I know this is veering off the track, but before we go back on the track... the president needs to realize that when he, as the president of the United States, says something, he's going to be held accountable for it, and it carries weight. So if he doesn't mean it, he should not say it. And that's a no-brainer, but whatever. But back to this topic, in conducting the news, many of these news outlets feel like they have to balance their visual appeal with their news content. so people will want to watch. This is just what we were explaining. For-profit news operations like CNBC, Fox Business, Sky News, Fox News, HLN, CNN, MSNBC, they survive by drawing ratings and change accordingly. Do you think that the news is...
It's not news anymore. It's tweet.
Do you think it's successfully striking a balance between visuals and substance?
No. Visual is far more important than anything else.
And anything that doesn't have compelling video to go along with it doesn't make the television news. So, I mean, in your opinion, which television news organizations are the least successful at informing the public, and which do you think are doing the best job, in your opinion?
Honestly, even when I had television, I wouldn't watch the news. So and it's all a rehash. I mean...
Basically, you would say, none are doing an adequate job.
No, I don't think any are actually informing people.
They'll quote a government official saying something, and then they never question it, And that's just lazy journalism.
Fun.
And they just bring on, blowhard experts, quote-unquote. I think that in terms of informing the public, I think that MSNBC and Fox News are the two worst at informing the public.
Fair and balanced my ass.
Oh, yeah, right. And then I think that maybe...
CNN can be bad, too.
Yeah, but I don't think it's at the bottom, at the worst. But then again, I haven't learned a single thing from CNN ever. But anyway, so I think those two I would list those two at the bottom, and I would say the two best would be Russia Today and probably public media. So Link TV or Free Speech TV.
That's not on television.
Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, it is on television. It's just not on...
That's not on television that people generally have access to. That's not on basic TV.
No,
Most
it's
people
not.
have access to CNN and things like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Most people wouldn't know that it even exists. But in some cable
it's
systems,
in English.
But well, it is in English. But I do think that for me, I would still rate that as the top. For me, Russia Today, and then Link TV, Free Speech TV, and Democracy Now. But of course, that's spotty. You don't get that in everywhere. What you do get is Fox News, CNBC, HLN, and MSNBC. But yeah, so if you could create from scratch your own ideal cable news network, what would it have in terms of information and sets, graphics, anchors, tickers, and words on the screen?
As far as anchors and stuff, I would just have experts in the field. Proven, academic experts. People that have published...
The panelists they bring on represent such a small... portion of the mainstream discourse, That's stuff you could get anywhere.
These news anchors, what are their backgrounds? Or if they want to talk about Russia, for example, you need a Russia expert.
In the mid-2000s, CNN was overtaken by Fox News, and they were kind of panicking, and they started to bring on and hire actresses and models as news anchors.
Because of the advent of television, our, congressional candidates, our whole senatorial, congressional, and presidential candidates, and those that have been elected, it has not been necessarily on the actual facts and views. It's been on who is a prettier soundbite. And it started with radio, because you wanted who sounded best,
yes.
And now TV, it's who looks best.
Yeah.
That's why Chris Christie, I know he said that he had his lap band for his health.
Mm-hmm.
He did.
And they have political consultants that they pay buku bucks.
Oh, yeah, what tie to wear, what suit to wear.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know what, but I really feel, maybe a lot of people would find this uncouth, but I really feel like if you're basing your decision, on who you think looks better, and if you're watching the news because you think the person delivering it is attractive and that's your only reason, then I don't think you should be voting, and I don't think you should be watching the news. According to C-SPAN, we're already several months into the presidential cycle, the election cycle.
Which is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a fall of 2002.
We haven't even hit the midterm.
Not even a full year. We're not even a full year into a 4-year term, and we're already gearing up. I personally would love to see reform, like in some other countries.
You get a 6-month window, you get an X amount from the government, go. Yeah.
Yep.
But you know what? Those societies are based on an ideal of, of values and public good, whereas our for us, our society is based on more on, individual gain and wealth and money. That's what drives that. It's different. Back to your ideal cable news network. What would the screen look like? What would you choose to be the important elements on the screen?
I'd like to see some bullet points, for example.
What about a stock ticker?
No, I think if you really care about stocks, you can go look it up.
What about the...
If you want a stock ticker, if you watch, like, MSNBC, not MSNBC, but the Bloomberg Financial Channel,
yes,
they have stock ticker. But even then, you're not going to care about all of these stocks.
Well, also, and Bloomberg is not even as crazy as CNBC is.
They're going by so fast, it's not like you can see it anyway.
I know.
Seriously.
Yeah, they fly by. So what about like a logo and like the time and the weather?
Yeah, you could have like a little picture of a sun and the temperature degree, sure, because that's not going to change. And that's, you glance at it, you're done. And maybe the time, but to be honest, you really should know what time it is.
But it's so funny because I'm a news junkie, and I there are times when I look to the screen to see what time it is in my time zone because I don't know.
No, I wear a watch, but see, but again, that's not something that's really going to distract you all that much.
What about in terms of like graphics and like swooshing across the screen and info boxes?
No, you don't need all that. An info box as to who's speaking, potentially, but I just think that should be up there the whole time. Like, while their person's head is there, have their name and their title.
But that wouldn't be about... On CNBC, there are 3 boxes with unrelated information. You would not have that?
Right. No, absolutely. It takes away from what you're trying to see, what you're trying to learn.
Yeah.
It's distracting.
Yeah.
And most people cannot focus that much for that long on that many things.
Yeah.
And they wonder why, like, our whole society has become ADHD.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, in thinking about, like, I've gave it a lot of thought, like, in thinking about, like, what my ideal cable news network would be. And, of course, I love and value the ridiculous. And I'll admit, while I know that when we're talking about this, I know that when the more crap you put on the screen, the less people get from it. However, if I was given free reign to create my own, I would have these, like, beautiful, sometimes outdoor sets, but if they're indoors, it would be very, like, minimalist, and they'd be the theme of purple. And I would have, like, a little logo in the bottom, and the time in different time zones, and a little map with the different pinpoints in the world, with little, what weather it is there, and I'd have a news ticker, and I would have... But I would have...
Constantly moving in things.
I know. But that's what they need to... They feel they need to get eyeballs to their channels, have that.
Well, again, it's what you like and what I like and what the average person can handle are a little different.
Yeah, but I really don't think they're taking into account whether the person can absorb the information, but whether that will make them stay on the channel,
Yeah.
It's not so much news.
It's about advertising dollars.
And I've started to think of commercial news operations. I've started to think of those. They're really not news. What they are is like news-based entertainment. That's really what it is. It's like the difference between whole bean coffee and that dust,
Yeah. When the Boston bombing happened.
Yeah.
What was the first thing they released? Completely incorrect information. But
A brown-skinned male. And that was CNN, Cable News Network, the first name in news. Well, you're wrong. First is not always best. And actually, usually, it's the worst. It's like if these people did go to journalism school to verify with at least 2 corroborating sources before you report something. And obviously something went awry. We are told that we live in a society with a free press. While this sounded good in theory during the 1770s, we have learned in the intervening years that our press is actually not free. In the United States commercial media, advertiser pressure can cause stories of public concern to be minimized or disappear altogether. Mainstream war journalists embed with the army, seeing only what the government wishes and reports dutifully. The United States has no strong, heavily subsidized public media. Instead, NPR and PBS lag far behind the services of Canada, France, Germany, China, Japan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and even Iran. What public media we do have does not wish to rock the boat because it is dependent on the foundations of charitable elites for donations. How did we end up in a situation such as this?
It's because, again, we're a greed-based society.
Yeah, and I guess that's what we can expect. It's a demonstration of our
Exactly.
values.
It was established to be free, not established to be he with the most money wins.
Our country was established upon a value of opportunity to gain wealth, and that gaining wealth was a good thing. But I think it was also established with a cluster of other ideas. But over the centuries, this one idea has started to blossom a lot fuller than the others. So that's really the only ideal that we have as a society.
Yeah.
So this model in which we had our press, which is basically, in theory it was just we have a free press, you can do whatever. But what that has borne is that we have a few very large international corporations running commercial-based media enterprises that don't do a good job demonstrably of informing people.
I mean, let's face it. There are a few there are a few big companies that run the world.
Yes. I mean, has our model, the libertarian model of the press, carried out its stated mission to be a free media for a free country?
No, we do not have a free media. Pictures of, Kim Kardashian's baby. I paid $10 million so I could be the first to show the picture. That kind of thing. And that stuff's been going around for a long time, not Kardashian. You know what I mean?
But what you bring up a good point, because that fervor over the Kardashian, the whole thing, the Kardashian wedding, which, it perhaps was fraudulent, and her baby, all the money is pouring into those resources. It really shows what our society values, because we are a money-based society. So what we value gets money. So what does that say about this? That's what we value. Kim Kardashian.
Even 50 years ago, no one would have cared because she didn't have a perceptible talent.
She would be on the society pages of the newspaper, and that would be the end of it. That would be the end of it. But then socialites were not really celebrities in the sense that we think of them as. They were a separate class, and they didn't really mix either,
No.
I don't know. I mean, to come back to this, I think this is a good place to wrap up this discussion, but to bring it back to CNBC and the Decabox, I think currently they are the quintessential example of the cluttered cable screen run amok.
You said you thought it would be more of a clusterfuck where they didn't talk over each other and all that. Give it time.
Because it was not some controversial issue they were discussing. It's not like anybody was for the NASDAQ freeze. Everyone was in accordance.
Wait till Syria, as that hits, if they have the Decabox on with Syria.
Or wait till Fox News adopts this Decabox idea, All hell will break loose.
Yeah, and I listen to Fox Radio sometimes in the car just for entertainment's sake.
Yeah, I listened to it in the shower this morning and it was garbage.
But I did not know about Glenn Beck's little, it's like Jay Leno's Man on the Street thing that he used to do.
Yeah, and they're actually, I feel like they're kind of...
Or Letterman used to do it.
Yeah.
And, I was disgusted.
I've seen Glenn Beck's Man on the Streets, and it's just, I guess I'm so suspicious of his motives, and I think that at times he can be very nasty, making people think that just a certain sector of the political public is this way, and that's not true at all, And certainly Obama supporters are some of the most ignorant voting bloc. However, they are not alone, and I don't think they should be treated as if they're alone. There are people, that believe that Sharia law will be imposed in the United States, or Obama's a Muslim, or he's a secret Muslim masquerading as a Christian, or he's the Antichrist. So, it goes on both sides.
Isn't he, though?
Pardon?
Isn't he the Antichrist?
I didn't think you Jews had an Antichrist.
I'm obviously being facetious.
I know. But I got you there, didn't I?
Junior senators should not be president.
Seems highly
Not
inappropriate.
with only 4 years of experience. That's nothing.
Yes.
So that was my big issue. And sure enough, I think he's proven me right.
I think Yeah, but you know what? See, I agree with your premise, but the thing is, you have to not think about it in terms of governing. Well, you can, but I look at through it through the issue of, he has been a very effective president, and let me continue. He has been effective. He has been effective in the sense that he has carried out exactly what the people who back him and what his donors and what the establishment desires of him. So in effect, a successful, quote unquote, successful politician is one that carries out the agenda of the elites in a very effective way. And in that sense, he's been a very effective president.
Well, I don't know. I think what he's really been effective at is, like we discussed earlier, completely destroying our credibility throughout the world.
I think I think our credibility was destroyed previously, though. I don't think that it started with him.
Bush definitely started it. I will give him that. But whether or not it was real, he was going to find an excuse to bomb you.
I don't know. I mean, perhaps maybe there is that argument to be made that there is indecision on Syria, but this has not been a peacetime president. I mean, if you recall, obviously, he was given the Nobel Peace Prize early on, continued the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. He promoted drone programs in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Yemen, in Libya, causing more terrorists to rise up from those societies. He invaded Libya. He is funneling arms to the Syrian rebels. He is the American empire in a peace sign mask. If people think that he's a peace president, they're wrong. If you look at it, I have no respect for him either, but if you look at him in the sense of how well is he serving the powers that really run this country, with what he's been given, he's doing a pretty good job of that,
And the fact is they all come from the same mold.
Yeah.
They're all like the Harvard, whatever, and they all literally are the same old boys club.
So this is a good note to end. Anything else you wanted to say about any of the topics we covered?
No, I think as usual you do a very thorough job.
Thank you very much. And, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's always a delight. And I would thank in absentia Charlotte, who had to depart. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And if people want to contact you, how can they?
It's Wolfine, WOLFYNE, at yahoo.com.
Okay, and if you want to contact me, you can reach me through my Facebook profile, JAKOBMUSICK-MILLER. And thank you very much for being on again, Annika. And
anytime.
We'll talk to you next time. Hope you enjoy. Bye.
On this special needs subject?
Well, you were about to say something. I'll let you have the last comment.
My sister right now is like a teacher's assistant, and she's in the special needs class, and she has one little boy she's responsible for, and his IEP states that he gets one-on-one attention, and he's in kindergarten, although she said that he's about 7 years old.
Yes.
So I don't know when he started with the one-on-one, but many of the schools where I live in Anne Arundel County have a section for special needs, and they're really highly qualified people that are staffed in there.
Yes.
But it's still not enough.
Yes.
And, right, but you have to fight so hard to get IEP.
Oh, my
By
mom.
the time you get it, it's too late sometimes.
Yes. And I have a
when my son
backstory
was
about
in
that as
school-
well. But we are going to go to